I'm Jamie and welcome back to my channel, Jamie Sage Knits. Today I'll be doing a pattern roundup video on Valentine's themed knits. I was feeling really inspired leading up to kind of the Valentine's season, and I decided to take a look through my favorites and take a little browse around Ravelry and find some patterns that are kind of romantic, feminine, cutesy, demure, and share them with you today. So we've got some sweaters and cardigans, blouses, tanks, some accessories as well. And I always love doing these pattern roundup videos because I see so many patterns that I love and I just don't have time to knit them all, or some of them I think are so gorgeous but they're not really my style, and I still have a lot of appreciation and admiration for them. So I love the chance to gather them up, chat about them a little bit, and then see in the comments if there's any that you all watching enjoy or would want to try out. So please let me know down below if you have knit any of these, if any of them are already on your queue, or if you're feeling inspired seeing them today and are planning to make any of them. So with that, let's dive in. If you like this video, feel free to subscribe to be notified of my future pattern roundups as well as my own knitting podcasts. And I guess before we talk about the patterns for today, I also can mention my sweater that I'm wearing. This is the Arundel pullover by Ellis Knitwear. I recently participated in the test knit for this pattern and it was just released a few days ago. So please feel free to check it out if you're interested. If you've been following along with my podcast, I know I had been promising to let you all know when it's released, and that finally is the case. So I will show a little bit more of the design. So beautiful, very classic colorwork pattern, super fun to knit as well. So feel free to check it out. And with that, let's dive into the patterns. So I've kind of organized them by category. I'll start off with some pullovers and cardigans, get into blouses, and then skirts and dresses, and then accessories at the end. And I will label the chapters so you can skip around if you would like. The first sweater that I want to talk about is one that I'm definitely excited to hopefully knit one day. This is the Champagne Pullover by Sari Nordland. As you can see, this has kind of a delicate cable and lace pattern. I just think it's so beautiful. You'll notice it's probably not a pullover that you would wear like this where you can't see what's under it. It's one that you would have to wear an undershirt, but I just think it's so pretty, and there's a lot you could do with that kind of like see-through nature. You could kind of plan ahead and do a light color that you would wear over a dark undershirt, or a dark color that you would wear under a light undershirt to have some contrast, or you can do what she's done in the sample and just have it be kind of like a neutral color that really lets the texture shine. And I just think it is so gorgeous. To give a little bit of background on the specs of this pattern, the size ranges from 37.5 to 69 inches with 8 inches of positive ease recommended. I think that if I were to knit it, I would probably go for a little bit less positive ease than that. With such a detailed feminine sweater, I like the idea of having it be a little bit more fitted. I just think that would look really nice, almost more like a blouse style. And the pattern itself is knitted with fingering plus a mohair, or if you don't want that mohair halo or you don't want to pay for both yarns, you can use a light DK weight as well. And so we see this sample in a beautiful cream color. I think that'd be really nice. I could also imagine like a light gray or a light pink would also be lovely. And then some of the projects on Ravelry show brighter colors, darker colors. I think anything would be, you know, really beautiful with this, but a kind of light ethereal color could be really beautiful in particular. Next up, I wanted to mention the Sorbet sweater by Veronica Lindberg, or Kutavakika. So this one is pretty different. It's very chunky, cozy. I think it has a cutesy vibe from the lace panel down the front and down the sides of the sleeves. And this one is knit with a bulky weight, so it would probably work up really quickly. I noticed that the size inclusivity is not that great with this one. It looks like the size options range from 44 to 58 inches with 6 to 12 inches of positive ease recommended. So that's one downside of this pattern, but I did want to include it because I feel like it's really cute. And again, I feel like this is one that could also be fine if you wanted to have it be like more of a neutral ease fit. It could be really cozy and really fun to wear, especially in like the cold of winter. I haven't knit like a bulky weight sweater in a while. So this is one that I think could be really fun. And again, to knit it in like a lighter color, like the sample, could be great, but I think you could also find a beautiful darker color, brighter color to knit it up with. Next up, I wanted to mention the Northern Augustins number 4 by Anne-Sophie Velling. This you might have seen going around. I feel like it's a really popular pattern, but I would be remiss not to include it because it is such a cutesy and feminine pattern. It has this beautiful color work, and the kind of curves and the bows are just so gorgeous, so fun. The pattern offers sizes of 39 to 67 inches with 8 inches of positive ease, and it calls for a worsted weight yarn plus mohair, so a bit of a larger gauge, again, one that could knit up pretty quickly. You can see the sample is kind of like a peachy beige with red bows. I think that a blush pink background with pink or red bows would also be really pretty. And in addition, I was thinking maybe like a kind of like dark blue or navy background with pastel bows would be really cute. So kind of swapping the dominant color and making the background darker, having lighter bows could be really cool as well. Now this next one I think is a newer pattern, and it only has maybe like a couple projects on Ravelry, but when I saw it, I was just totally wowed by it. This is the Chrysanthemum cardigan, and I don't know how to pronounce the designer's name. I think it's Ludmila Aksanik. I just thought this was so unique. The beautiful color work, the kind of fluffy base that the designer chose, I was very entranced by this. And the pattern includes both adult and kid sizes, so it ranges from a 21.5 to 62.5 finished bust. And I think it recommends like a pretty neutral ease or like a couple inches of positive ease. It calls for a fingering weight yarn. The designer used Angora for the base, so it's like this fluffy appearance, and then also chose a gradient yarn for the contrast petals, which creates a beautiful effect. But you could use, a unicolor yarn if you want a simpler look. Or I was thinking it could be a good scrap project, potentially, to use like different scraps for the petals. And so then it could kind of have a dual purpose. It looks nice and colorful, but it also uses up some of those scraps if you have any fingering weight scraps in your stash. Next up, I want to talk about kind of like a few blouses or t-shirts. The first one is the Sheer V sweater by Jessie Made Designs. So this one you can see is a blouse with flared sleeves with this sheer V on the chest made with mohair. I think that's really cool and kind of unique to combine that sheer look and the more like dense look of wool in the same design. And the size inclusivity, as with all of Jessie Made Designs, is really great. It ranges from 26 to 62 inches with neutral ease to 2 inches of positive ease recommended, and it calls for a light fingering weight yarn plus a mohair. And I'm thinking about knitting this with some scrap yarn or leftover yarn I have from a previous project, but I don't have enough mohair to like hold the whole thing with mohair. So I'm thinking about if it would be possible to have most of it be just with wool and then kind of like bring the mohair in just around the edges and then for the sheer part. So we'll see if I figure that out. But I just thought this one was so fun and a great one for like transitional seasons. It's not like a full-on sweater. Next up, we have a project that I actually have worked on and I'll be talking about in my upcoming podcast. This is the Sadie top by Woozy by Celine. And even though it's so simple, I just absolutely fell in love with this design. It's so flowy and angelic and I think very feminine, but you could also like make some adjustments to it, and I think the color of it could really be adapted to make it a different vibe. The sizing includes ranging from 39.5 to 61 inches. It recommends 6 to 8 inches of positive ease, and as you can see, it's this very open gauge knit with a single strand of lace weight mohair. You could also use like a suri or something like that. I think it's super fun because you can do like more subtle skin toned one like the sample. Some of the test knitters also used like bright colors or even did stripes. I don't know if that's like a striping yarn or maybe someone used different scraps, but I absolutely love working on this pattern, and I think I'll go into it more in my podcast, but I could definitely see myself making at least one more of this, if not even more than that. And you can also do like a t-shirt version. There's just a lot you could do with this, kind of staple pattern. I just think it's so beautiful and a really great example of kind of like a feminine look, but one that's not super overtly like feminine and girly. Just has this really nice drapey, just beautiful look. And then next up, we have one that is very girly, I would say. This is the Made You Dream blouse by Vanessa Fleming. And this looks kind of difficult to make in some ways. Like, looking at it, can't necessarily think of a time that I've used techniques to create an appearance like this, but my hope is that the pattern would walk you through it. And so you can see it's this kind of cutesy, like square neck top with the bodice, the ruffle, the bow tie. I just think it looks so gorgeous. It calls for 2 strands of mohair, another lace weight substitute held together. And you can do a tank top, you can do cap sleeves, you can do long sleeves. I thought the light blue tank top in the sample photos was so precious. I think if I were to make this, I would want to do the tank top version and maybe even copy that light blue or kind of like sky blue color. So beautiful. And what's interesting here is it's actually a custom size. So the underbust ranges from 22 inches to 49 inches. And then you customize it from there with 0 to 17-inch difference for your bust shaping. So I imagine you could have like, a 30-inch underbust and then like 6 inches for your bust, or a 40-inch underbust and then a 10-inch difference for your bust. So that's pretty cool. I don't know all the details of how you'd execute that, but I do think for a top like this, where the bust shaping is pretty important to make it fit nicely, it's great that the designer has approached it in this way to allow for that customization. And then next up, we have the Campanula tee, which also has a little bit of a ruffle dynamic going on. This is by Anna Herman Sorensen. And as you can see, this is a ribbed tee with kind of subtle ruffle details. This one is one that I would love to make. I feel like it has a subtle girly aspect, but is also a very classic design. However, it is knit on 2.5 millimeter needles, so I feel like this is the type of pattern that would give me a mental breakdown. It just seems like a lot of ribbing and a lot of fabric to work up on such tiny needles. So it might be one that I would kind of like work on, chip away at over time, pick up and put down, and just allow myself some flexibility there. But the pattern ranges from 22 to 43 inches unstretched at the bust, I guess because it's ribbing even after blocking, it has the tendency to scrunch in. And so the designer mentions that it's recommended to wear with 6 to 10 inches of negative ease. So even with that, it would only go up to a 53-inch bust, which I know does not totally fit the standard for size inclusivity. It's not terrible, but it could be a little better. I don't know if that's something the designer is planning on in the future, but for now, I did think is a really beautiful pattern. It looks like it could be store-bought, and like I said, it's one that I would consider making, but just knowing myself and my strengths in knitting, my weaknesses in knitting, just like so much ribbing on tiny needles would be pretty tough for me. So maybe one for the future. It's knit with a sport weight yarn recommended on those 2.5 millimeter needles. I imagine you could probably get away with a fingering weight as well. And I think it would be so beautiful in like a dusty rose or a sage green type color. So not like a lot of these other ones, I'm really feeling like a pastel vibe, but this one I'm feeling more of like a dusty, like not a bright color, kind of like a less saturated middle ground color. And I think there are some sample photos with that color scheme. Next up, we have another tee, but a quite different one, I would say. This is the Margaret tee by Joanna Garish. And this one is like a tie front, almost cardigan style tee with these cute little mohair ruffle details. The finished bust ranges from 36 to 58 inches with 0 to 3 inches of positive ease recommended. And it's knit with fingering weight. As you can see, there are these little mohair ruffles that are added, which is super cute. And I also think it could be fun to adapt it to longer sleeves and then wear it as like a cardigan over like a tank top or something, rather than as this like almost t-shirt with ties. I also say that based on my own experience knitting the top sole, which is, I mean, it's pretty different from this, but the similarity is that it's like that open tie front detail, and I just don't get much wear out of it because it's hard to wear it with a bra and you can like see the bra underneath. So if I were to make this Margaret tee, I probably would just wear it with a tank top underneath, or I would make the sleeves longer like I mentioned. But yeah, I think this one is so cute, and I would really love to make something like this, but for whatever reason, the long sleeve vision is really calling to me rather than the short sleeve. I don't know if anyone else feels me on that. Next up, we have another top with like an edging detail. This is the Ophelia tank and top by Tamara Jordan or Starcross Knits. So this one has options to do a tank, a tee, or a long sleeve with this beautiful kind of lacy detailing on the edges. The sizing ranges from 28 to 62 inch bust with 0 to 4 inches of positive ease recommended. And this one also includes instructions on personalizing the bust, waist, and hip shaping, which I think is great. And it calls for a fingering weight yarn. This is another one I could definitely see myself making, and I probably would go for the tank top or t-shirt version of this. I talked about this in my Make 9 video, but I have really been loving in the past like year or so making more summery knits and using either like a merino that is fingering weight and is breathable and, at least for me, makes a comfortable summer fabric, or something like a silk yarn or a linen yarn, something like that. So this is one that I would love to try out, either with a fingering weight merino, maybe like a cotton, and yeah. Next up, I wanted to mention the Lily tank top by Along Avec Anna. This is, as you can see, a tank top with bows on the shoulder ties, so it adds kind of this subtle feminine aspect with those bows. And I know bows have been pretty trendy for the past year, but I feel like this is a way of incorporating them that's pretty classic as well. So I don't think it's something that's like totally trendy and would go out of style. When we spend so much time knitting something, we want it to be one that we can wear, kind of bring out year after year, not just have for like one season as a trend. And this one I think would fit that bill. The pattern offers sizing from 32.5 to 66 inches with 1 to 4 inches of positive ease recommended. It calls for a fingering weight yarn. I just went through so many possibilities of what you could do with this pattern. We see the sample is this very like nude neutral color. That can be cute, but I feel like a bright color, even like a scrappy project with stripes could be fun. So there's a lot that we could do here. And I mean, this could work for a few of these, but I feel like this is one where it could be cute to have like a plain color and then like even embroider some little flowers onto it or something like that, and kind of embellish it or add beads. I was watching Knit's review of the book about embellishing knits, so I feel like this, I don't know why I'm inspired by this one, but like this could be one to add some embellishment onto because it is kind of this like blank canvas. Next up, we have a couple of dresses. I had mentioned in my Make 9 as well, I would love to make more dresses in 2025 and beyond. So this first one is called the Heart-Shaped Dress Number 1 by Ann-Britt Engen. This one is kind of this delicate fit and flare dress with this heart-shaped cable pattern. This one I think would definitely be a labor of love. It calls for a fingering weight yarn, and it's a lot of fabric, a lot of cables, but so beautiful and classic. The pattern includes a 31.5 to 58 inch bust, and it's knit top down. I love the appearance of the white sample, but I would probably be afraid to knit it in white, just in case it gets dirty. Like, you put so much time into something like that, and I would just be afraid to wear it. But I do think a light color would show off the cables well, so maybe something like a light gray or like a light brown, something neutral, so you could get a lot of wear out of it, but maybe not stark white. I also was looking at the Principessa dress by Sarah Wilson. So this one has this really cool low back with like a drapey lace component to it. And it includes a 30 to 52 inch bust sizing in the pattern. And it calls for sport weight yarn. The recommended fiber is mostly silk and linen, which I imagine contributes to the drape and the structure in the pattern. This one I feel like would also be a labor of love. It would probably take a long time, and it's not the most wearable, but I do feel like it's so beautiful. So maybe something for like a special occasion, or if you're someone where you feel like you could fit this into more regular wear, that could be cool too. And then finally, we have what I would say is like the most wearable and also probably the relatively easiest to make out of the dresses is the Wrap It Up dress by Friday Knits. So this one I think is very classy, very demure. It has 30 to 58.5 inch sizing, and it recommends 0 to 2.5 inches of positive ease. It's knit up with an Aran weight on 5mm needles, so hopefully it would work up relatively quickly. And you can see the sample is made in this nice like neutral tan color. I feel like that could be nice, or like a gray or a brown. Or this could be a fun one to bring into like a brighter color, or something like a forest green I feel like would be really nice. Just kind of depends on what your wardrobe and preferred colors are. But I could definitely imagine myself working on this one maybe next fall. I don't think I have time to squeeze it into my winter knitting plans, but I think next fall or winter this could be a really cool one to incorporate. We also have a few skirts, which are really calling to me. I don't think I have any knitted skirts, but here's a few options and we'll see what you think. I would definitely love to choose at least one of them to work on. So the first one is called the Chima skirt by Aegyo Knit. This one is a wrap skirt. I think it's a relatively recent release, and the size inclusivity isn't great. It offers 30 to 49 inches on the upper hips, and it recommends 3 to 5 inches of negative ease. So I might try it out, but I just wanted to know, I feel like that's not, I don't know what the inclusivity standard is for lower body, but the 49-inch upper range doesn't seem like super high. However, I think this is really cute how it's like this wrap skirt. The color, this like dark gray, is almost like sporty, I think. But if you did a different color or even like a color combination, then I think it could be, you could like change up the vibe a lot. And I found the content of this interesting as well. She calls for 2 strands of sport weight yarn, recommending Isager Merlin, which is 80% wool, 20% linen, and Isager Trio 2, which is 50% linen, 30% cotton, 20% tencel. So that's kind of interesting. It didn't really go into too much detail in the pattern notes on Ravelry of like yarn substitutions or like why those yarns and contents are called for, but something I notice about it is because of the linen and cotton content, then probably you could wear it like across seasons. It wouldn't be like a heavy wool skirt. So I did think that was interesting. I might wait it out a little bit more so more people put their projects on Ravelry and I can see suggested yarns and stuff like that. But we'll see. And then this next skirt is probably the one I'm most excited about. This is the Lempicka skirt by Pina Candio. And this is an all-over lace skirt. I've been very into lace recently, which I'll talk about in my next podcast as well. But I just think this one is so beautiful. The sizing fits a waist of 25 to 50 inches and a hip of 31.5 to 55 inches. And it calls for a DK weight yarn on 4mm needles. So this is one you would have to wear like over tights, but I think it's super cute and looks really fun. And you could do a more neutral color, but there's also samples with like a beautiful rich red or something like that. I just think this would be really gorgeous and like a great focal point for an outfit. We also have a skirt that's like now somewhere in the middle. It has a little bit of pizzazz, but not quite so much of a statement. This is the Menorah skirt by Nina Unterberg. So you can see this one fits in at the waist and then it flares out with like these little lace panels on the sides. I think it's so pretty. And this one ranges from a 24 to 47 inch waist. It calls for neutral ease at the waist, and then it flares out with sizing for 34 to 57 inch hips. And it calls for DK or worsted weight yarn on 3.5 millimeter needles. So that seems like it would be a pretty dense gauge. But the skirt looks really pretty and like it has some nice drape to it. So I think this would be a pretty fun one to check out as well. And again, I feel like a lot of colors could work here, ranging from a neutral that you could wear with a lot of different outfits to something that's more of a statement. Like I think a pastel color would be really pretty for this and would go kind of tie in with the lace panels on the sides. The last skirt I want to mention is the Bloomfield skirt by Magdalena Parker. So this is this long cabled skirt with a slit towards the bottom. This is another one that I think would be such a labor of love because it is designed as a long skirt with a lot of cables, and then with that slit you would have to knit the bottom flat. So I'm a little bit intimidated, but I do absolutely love the look of it. It calls for 1 to 2 inches of negative ease at the hips with 34 to 71 inch finished hip circumference, a pretty wide range there. And the yarn is fingering weight in the gauge. So that makes the all over cables and the big amount of fabric even more intense. However, something I talked about in my Make 9 is that, at least for me, I'm interested in kind of like investing more into yarn and then having a project that takes up more of my time and gives me kind of more return of enjoyment and knitting time for that investment. So maybe something like this would actually be good to kind of keep me occupied for a long time and knit up that fingering weight fabric gradually over time. So I'm keeping this one on my radar. Definitely let me know if you have worked on it, if you're planning to try it out. I would love to make one in like a gray color like the sample, or just a neutral. I would want to get a lot of wear out of something like this because I would invest a lot of time into it. And then lastly, I have a few accessories that I wanted to mention. These ones are a bit more overtly Valentine themed. I thought that would be fun, and for accessories, I think it makes more sense to have like a very holiday themed one, whereas for a larger garment, of course you could do that if you feel excited about it, but when you're going to put so much time into it, I feel like it's nice to be able to wear it with a bit more diversity. But first up here, we have a pair of socks called the Queen of Heart socks. This has a really cute colorwork motif that I think ties in well with Valentine's Day and with the hearts. This one is a free download, and you can adjust it to your size with a multiple of 10 stitches. And of course you would use a sock yarn or a light fingering weight. I just thought this one was really cute and fun, wanted to mention it. And of course there's other colorwork socks out there that have hearts and that could be fun for Valentine's Day, but this one really tickled my fancy. I also wanted to mention this Be My Valentine beanie by Julia White. This one you knit up with super bulky yarn, and this looks like a really fun one, either to make like a cozy beanie with yourself. It has a kind of subtle heart-shaped texture on it. So this is another one that, I mean, it could be thematic for Valentine's Day, but it also could be worn at other times. And this I think also would be like a really quick knit, so a fun one to do as gifts as well. And then the last thing I wanted to mention is these Valentine mittens by Anita Vixton. This one is another free pattern. Like a lot of mittens, it's one size, but you can alter the size by changing your gauge using different yarn or needle size or both. But it's the standard pattern. It calls for sport weight yarn, and you would use 2 to 3 different colors depending on how you want to do the colorwork pattern. And I think this one looks really cute and like really fun and bold colorwork pattern to work up. So that is everything I have to share with you today. I hope you enjoyed and got some inspiration, and thanks for watching to the end if you got here. Like I've been mentioning throughout, feel free to let me know in the comments if any of these patterns tickle your fancy, if you want to try any of them, and feel free to subscribe to follow along with any future pattern recommendations or with my own knitting. So thanks again, and I will hopefully see you soon. Bye.